It's the only solution for inflation and deflation. Why? Because it's the only pattern of introduction and retirement of circulation in which the obligor pays for what they consume of our production with an equal measure of their own production, which maintains a perpetual one-to-one-to-one relationship between remaining circulation and remaining value of represented wealth and remaining obligation to pay just so much for that remaining value of represented wealth. It's the only pattern, therefore, which makes a circulation always redeemable in the very property it represents. And it's the only system which runs without any government regulation or intervention at all. The people, in their needs to conduct industry and commerce, themselves govern how much currency is in circulation. And by eliminating exploitation, they're allowed to pay for their consumption of each other's production with equal measures of their own production, which is the very purpose of economy and free enterprise and true free markets. There is no such thing as a true free market without mathematically perfected economy.
Mike, in the case of walking around currency, how would we put us into that role right now? Would there still be a secret service, or the need for a treasury, the mint to coin shekels or silver or gold? Or
in truth, there would be no need for a treasury. There would be no need for gold or silver reserves. And they have their actual owners. However, ownership of gold and silver has been obfuscated by this obfuscation of the currency. This obfuscation of the currency makes the banking system, which produces nothing, the eventual owners of everything, particularly when the system fails and there's gross systemic bankruptcy under which proprietorship of property defaults to a mere publisher of further representations of our promissory obligations, which tells you how sick we are. That it's not compulsive to us that we understand this obfuscation of the currency in effect of singular solution. So basically, each country of the world is allowed to implement this however they will, but generally I believe it would result in a currency-less world. That is, we would generally have something like a debit card and any kind of chosen alternative means of identification, which might be what we currently use. It might use whatever you might want to use in addition to it. But basically, we have what would be a common monetary infrastructure. And that infrastructure is basically software and a data center, which maintains the accounts of the people. So you're on your way to Florida and you decide you want to buy you just fall in love with some house. You decide it's going to be a summer home you might use for 1 month of the year. It's $100,000 home with a 100-year lifespan, and you love the property and whatever, and it's going to cost you $83.33 a month because under mathematically perfected economy, if we exercised linear rates of depreciation or consumption of the related property, you divide the lifespan into the remaining lifespan into the current value, and that would be the cost. So you divide 100 years into $100,000, and you find the cost of a $100,000 home with a 100-year lifespan under mathematically perfected economy overall is $1,000 a year, or $83.33 a month. So for $83.33 a month, you buy this home with your debit card, basically. And the payments are automatically deducted from your account after your creditworthiness is certified and you're passed. You become the new owner of the home. So these kinds of functions would be automated by software, and we wouldn't be receiving bills in the mail anymore, and the payments would be automatically deducted from our accounts. And the same thing would happen when we went to the grocery store. Some of the things we bought might be paid as they depreciated or consumed, and more immediately consumed items might be paid for immediately, and those could be classified by barcoding and whatever that was automated in the system, and all of it would just be done. And
Mike, the data centers would be not unlike privately controlled data centers today, right?
No, they wouldn't, except that these would have to belong to the people. The cost of maintaining them, if you took 6 billion people in the world, or 7 billion, whatever it is, and divided it, and assumed, let's just say, $1 per person per year, that would mean that we would need to be able to perform all these transactions, which are just simply what we do now, except for additional certification of creditworthiness on approval of issuance of a promissory obligation, which is a very simple matter, actually. So that's the only additional function to basic banking software, which already exists in the world. So if we could run that data center on $7 billion a year, which would be probably far more than it would cost, then we could provide this service for $1 a year per person for the entire world. And that's a very realistic and conservative, let's say, overestimation of its probable costs.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, and one person. In fact, I know several single persons who have written all the software that's ever existed in numerous banks. Which is the same thing. I mean, it's within the realm. I'm a software engineer. I'm not talking, baloney here. It's easily.
Well, a few phone calls from people like you who know this stuff would attract the best and the brightest, most intelligent, most integral people on the planet to get this done.
Oh, sure. In fact, I would imagine that there would be a number of people who could just volunteer. The code already exists. I've licensed this to this bank, that bank, and the other bank. That bank's going out of business now. How about you buy it from me outright? And I said, well, what do you want for it? Well, I want $5 a line of code, and it's a million lines of code. I'd say, I'll bet you I could write that in 50,000 lines of code or less. General going price when I was writing software actively was $1 a line of code. Was basically how you anticipated what to bid for software. And of course, there were people that would bid many times that, but that's a pretty much rule of thumb for a going rate. So the costs, nonetheless, are negligible, no matter how you over multiply it. It could be that we're talking $1 million worth of software instead of $50,000 of software. Divide 1 million into 7 billion people, and you're talking about inconsequential costs.
Wow. So, gosh, I want to.
There's much more implications. There's many more implications too. I mean, you talk about government corruption, exploitation, for instance. Yeah. There's an audit trail for everything. You've tied the hands of government to commit most of the crimes that it commits against us, because the principal crime of government is exploitation. It's abuse of power for the purpose of unearned taking, which is what a central banking system is.
Yeah. Well, the current system of banking is the root foundational cause of our global enslavement. Would that be a correct statement?
Yes, absolutely, including usurpation of representation. Because a banking system cannot exist without usurping representative government, not only in one country, in one country it might exist in, but in every country of the world. Because one country that might, for instance, immediately adopt mathematically perfected economy would be the impetus for all countries to immediately do so. I may be interviewing on European television here very soon, for example, and I don't want to mention the names, but I'm very, 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 very close to the top people in different governments now who are considering these people who are close are advocating. Ready to advocate mathematically perfected economy, and believe me, you're not going to hear this in the mainstream news, but
excuse me, Mike. There's a problem that is going to affect us all if I don't address it. Steve has to go, Fred, and he needs to hang up. He needs to be up in just a couple of hours to go back to work.
Oh, you're kidding? Okay, we have Mike on the Skype line. So all right. How do we do this? Is somebody else on Skype? Is there somebody else on Skype that's on the call at the same time?
Steve, are you there? Can you unmute for a second and help us out?
Actually, Dee Dee, I think we could probably maybe wrap this up at 11 o'clock. Would that be fair for Steve?
Well, Steve would be the one. It's 10 minutes from now. Steve, can you please come on the line and talk with us, please?
Because Fred's just going to sleep in his car there. He's got a bottle of wine.
I bet he wishes he did.
Yeah. Actually, I am on Skype here on my phone here, Mike. I could try it. I just don't know how to three-way on this phone. I could try it if you want to. What we could do here is Steve, if we could just go to the top of the hour, we could make a couple of attempts. Otherwise, I think we could probably wind down the call, close it out.
Okay, let me.
Normally,
Steve, let me ask him if he can stay on for 10 more minutes, Fred. So just hold on a second, see if he responds.
Yeah, I can do that, but I'm gonna have to go because I've got to be up. I've got to be up at 4. So every every longer I delay is how much shorter I got to do, and I got to drive tomorrow too.
Can you do 10 more minutes, Steve? I mean, really, honestly,
Sure. That's it, but okay. I'm gonna have to leave in 10 minutes.
You guys, we're gonna say goodbye in 10 minutes. Okay, go ahead, Fred. Go ahead, Mike, and thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. If I were you, I think I'd just go to bed and let us hang up on you, and we're done.
Well, he's got to close out the recording in the right way, or else we'll lose it. So, okay. So, Mike, what we're going to do is we're going to try to get, over a period of time, really focused to get Bill Still and you in a very positive engagement on this call is one example, perhaps. Steve Zerlenga in another example. Ellen Hodgkins Brown in another, kind of a thing. And so maybe, I mean, I've heard all of these perspectives, and your solution sounds like it's the most organically pure, foundationally strong of all of them.
Well, it was here first too, and it's what got all them going. So, basically we have adulteration of the solution since the solution was here first. My work was the first on the present formal internet. My Parable of Perfect Economy, for instance, was originally, exalted by Ellen Hodgson Brown herself to me she called it the most brilliant banking model in our nation's history. Well, it's not a banking model. It's a model for eradicating banking. in which banks are absolutely redundant, but that's what she called it. And then in op-ed news debates with me online many years ago now, when I apprised her that, the words of Benjamin Franklin in my parable of perfect economy are actually the words of Mike Montagne, that, the thing that she was citing didn't even exist. The words of Mike Montagne issued